Progressives, this is your trigger warning. Hi, folks. Welcome back. CNN hits Biden with horrible news as poll shows 66% of Americans call 2024 victory a disaster or a setback. Yeah. The poll shows POTUS with weakened support in a Dem primary challenge against RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson is an interesting character, to be sure. I like RFK Jr. to a certain extent. I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of it I do. I wish he was a better speaker, and I don't mean that meanly. He obviously has something wrong with his vocal cords. It's a little harder to listen to him. But if you really are interested in what he has to say, just listen to what he says, not how he says it. I think he's a decent guy. I think he means well. I think he tells the truth. So let's take a look at CNN here. Their little 1 minute clip concerning Biden and his polling numbers.
Horrible news. Horrible for Joe Biden in our new CNN poll. 2/3 of all of the American people surveyed, 66% of the public, say that a Biden victory would either be a setback or a disaster for the United States.
He's at 60% among Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents in this poll, Jake. Robert Kennedy Jr. is getting 20% support inside this primary right now. Look at how Americans are rating him, Jake. I mean, 35% favorable. That is remarkably low. And then you noted that question we asked, what would it mean if Trump or Biden won the 2024 election for the country? 41% say a Biden win would be a disaster. Trump, 44% say that about him.
Yeah, it's worse for Biden, but for both of them, most of the American people think electing them would be a disaster or a setback for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, the current Democratic and Republican frontrunners.
It is not an election the American people want.
What a country. What a country.
Yeah, pretty negative, huh? Pretty negative. It's negative for President Trump as well. But I think people are just fed up with what's going on, and they just want to throw everything out, including the baby with the bathwater, and start over. It's kind of like, those of you that know U.S. history, it's kind of like Ronald Reagan. It's kind of like even go back to 1920 with Warren Harding. His take was return to normalcy. And I think that's what people want. But you can't go back. Things have changed so dramatically around the COVID period and just prior now. And everything's just, the Democratic Party is losing its mind. They're trying to find their way, and they're not finding it. The Republicans need to stick together more. And on top of that, now we have all kinds of ballot harvesting going on. I mean, legal ballot harvesting. Some states allow that to a great extent. And the Republicans just aren't up to speed. They're 5-10 years behind the Democrats when it comes to collecting ballots legally. And it's just something that the Republicans are going to have to work out if they even have a chance at winning anything, let alone if you like Trump or like Biden or dislike both. The poll released Thursday showed a whopping 66% of Americans view a Biden victory in the upcoming presidential election either a disaster or a setback for the United States. Horrible news, horrible for Joe Biden, said anchor Jake Tapper, reacted to the poll. Now, Trump's numbers aren't so great in that either. But remember, this is a CNN poll, so my gut tells me that Biden's numbers are a little bit worse than they're showing, and Trump's numbers are a little bit better than they're showing. Maybe not a lot. Trump is who he is, and I'm going to say up front I am a Trump supporter, still am, even though DeSantis has announced. I consider the more the merrier. The more the merrier as far as candidates go, because the more candidates jump in, those numbers will be pulled from Ron DeSantis. They're not going to have any Trump people go to the new people that are coming in. I'm sorry. The Trump people that are Trump people now are dug in. You're going to get a very tiny percent. So the rest are going to have to try to figure out the other 50%. And the more the merrier makes it even better for Trump. I just wish some of his reaction tweets were a little bit better. I know DeSantis's launch on Twitter was a disaster. I tried to listen to it. It was impossible because I kept going offline. And so I listened to some of it later. He sounded like a robot reading off a script. he didn't sound very comfortable. And I've seen him at a lot of press conferences getting grief from reporters. And he can talk off the cuff. He can talk like a normal person talks. He sounded like a robot, and it was really weird, and it didn't sound like him at all. But we'll see if he gets around it. CNN political director David Chalian provided analysis of the poll that showed 41% of Americans specifically called Biden win a disaster, a slightly better figure than the 44% who said the same about Donald Trump. However, another 26% of Americans viewed a Biden win as a setback, while those 12% said the same about a Trump win. Trump, to me, is like anybody who's one of my favorite TV shows of all time is House MD. Any of you that watch that, the guy's a real bastard, a real SOB. And there was a lot of reasons for that, but the guy had a brilliant mind, and if you wanted to save your son or your daughter or your wife or your husband or a loved one, and you brought him in and nobody else could help them, House could. And he was a jerk. He was an ass. And you know what? Who cares? If I bring in my wife to try to save her from a disease that nobody can find out what it is, I don't care if the guy's an ass. I think a lot of people feel the same way about Trump. I know I do. He is who he is, and nothing's going to change that. Very much like RFK Jr., if he can get around how his speech is, even though it's not his fault, I'm not making fun of him at all, it's a disability, and just listen what he has to say rather than his voice, you get a lot of stuff out of it. Same with Trump. Trump is just blunt, old school, and that's the way it is. Both frontrunners were tied at 27% among those who call each of their wins a step forward. You know, maybe I'm a little biased, a lot biased, but almost a third of the people, well, 27%, think Biden being reelected is a step forward. That's the cult, dude. That's the cult. Yeah, there's some cult members on the Trump side, I'm not going to lie. But not like, at least Trump people will listen when you talk to them. The cult members on the left won't listen at all. But Trump held a 10-point lead over Biden among those who would call it a triumph. And there you have it. There you have it. I think a lot of people will hold their nose and vote for Trump, being he's so blatant and comes out with some weird stuff. But he had some policy pieces. You should check out his True Social site. There's a lot of crap on there, to be sure. I'm not going to lie. But he's got some policy videos that are very, very good. Yeah, it's worse for Biden, but for both of them, most of the American people think electing him would be a disaster, a setback for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I just think they have fatigue. Even Donald Trump's not responsible for the what's happening to our economy at all. But they just want to say, listen, let's just get rid of everybody and start over. I've had enough. And that's pretty much the attitude of a lot of people. The current Republican and Democrat frontrunner Tapper told Chalian, to which he replied, this is not an election the American people want. Well, they don't want a lot of things. They don't want the inflation. They don't want the jobs that are being lost by the millions because of the left's agenda. They don't want their kids being taught all kinds of crazy stuff in school. They don't want their kids secretly doing things with the school district behind their back. I won't go into details and not informing their parents. They're sick of everything. And I think that all comes into one. Both show Biden received a 35% approval rating. Now, my understanding from old school, maybe it's different now with the ballot harvesting, the legal ballot harvesting, is the fact that if you don't have low 40s, say 42, 43, 44% approval rating as an incumbent president, you're doomed. Maybe that's changed because of the legal ballot harvesting in some of the states. I don't know. Biden receiving a 35% approval rating, something Chalian commented as remarkably low. The breakdown of the data by party showed that while he has 79% support among Democrats, which is amazing to me, it's amazing that he still has almost 80%. He just 26% of independents. That's the big deal. A 9-point drop since December. Trump had a slightly higher overall approval rating of 37%. Yeah. It doesn't say, though, support among Republicans here for Trump. That's pretty high, I'm sure. But I was a Democrat my whole life. I was a local elected official in the year 2000s. I live in upstate New York. I left the party almost 10 years ago, but it's amazing to me. 79%. They're just dug in. They're just dug in. And there's no way that the Republicans or Trump or whoever the nominee is, more than likely Trump, can get much of a percent out of those Democrats. They're dug in just like the pro-Trump people like myself are dug in. It would take an extraordinary occurrence for me to drop that. And I'm talking about the civil and criminal suits against Trump. That's all total and just total bull. Things got grimmer for Biden when polled against his Democratic primary challengers, while he himself has earned 60% support. And that's the weird thing. He has 60% support among his primary challengers, but here he shows him 79% among Democrats. Those numbers don't jive. A stunning 20% threw their support behind Robert F. Kennedy Jr., while 8% backed spiritual guru and former 2020 presidential candidate Marianne Williamson, and another 8% wanted someone else. That's why the Democratic Party, the DNC, will not have any presidential debates, will not have any primary debates, period. They know that Biden would be slaughtered. Within the breakdown between Democrats and Democrat-leading independents shows 67% of the party level is backing Biden, while just 40% of the leading Democrats doing the same. That's a big deal. I consider the independents the votes in the middle. They're going to swing this election one way or another, whoever is the nominee. But Shalian called RFK Jr. support a potential warning sign. It is not a potential warning sign. It is a warning sign. As a solid 32% of those leading Americans back him while having only 15% of the party loyalists. That's a big deal. Now, some states have open primaries, some have closed. I'm 50-50 on whether it should be open or closed. Closed meaning you can only vote in a primary if you're registered to that party. Open meaning that if you're registered to vote, you can vote for anybody in the primary. I'm not sure which way to go, but states are different. Check out call your local Board of Elections. Usually it's with the county to see which way your state goes if you don't know. A news poll released last month showed a similar landscape of Democratic field, with Biden earning 62% of the support among primary voters, while RFK received 19% and Williamson 9%. Polls continue to show enthusiasm for the president, with a high percent of Americans concerned about his age. Low enthusiasm for the president. Yeah, it's not his age. It's not his age. It's what's wrong with him because of his age. It doesn't mean everybody his age is like he is. I think his mind is gone. Maybe the aneurysms he had fixed a while back contributed. Maybe it's just slow creeping dementia, which is horrible stuff. I don't know. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy, even though I have in the past. He's just something wrong with him. Now, is his age causing that? Maybe, but not everybody that age is like he is. Believe me, I know a lot of older people that are older than Biden that are sharper than I am. So everybody's just fed up with everything in general, and I think that's what it is. That's why the low numbers for Biden and Trump. And they just want things to go back to normal. If you look up the Warren Harding campaign, back to normalcy. And that was very appealing, since that was just after World War I and a lot of horrible stuff that went on with that in the American economy in general. They just wanted to go back to normal. And I think that's what American people want. But if you want going back to normal, don't vote for Biden. Do what you want with the rest. But Biden is a disaster. Absolute disaster. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.